Hello guys, you are all welcome again to gather here with us to discuss about the Spiritist Doctrine. And today we're going to specifically talk about the Spiritist Doctrine and Allan Kardec. Very good. First of all, we must go back in the past, a couple years ago, and remember some weird facts that were actually happening by that time. On March 31st, 1848, on Hydesville in New York, some weird things were happening in the Fox family's house. They were actually hear some noises, some raps, and they couldn't actually explain why this weird noises were happening. But then the Fox sisters, one of the Fox sisters, she was actually by the time 11 years old, she started to communicate with these strange noises. Then she thought, okay, I'm going to clap my hand once, and then you do one rap. And then one rap was heard. I'm going to clap my hands twice, and then you can make the rap twice. And then the rap was made. By this, they started to actually communicate with that noises, that raps, those raps. And of course, we know today that those actually noises that they used to call were spirits trying to communicate with them. And by that, they actually got to some sort of stories that these spirits, they were trying to tell them. One of the spirits in that house that actually had lived in that house 5 years ago, he was murdered, and he was trying to tell them. One of the people that they used to go to these meetings in that house made some kind of alphabet to communicate with him. And then the claps and the noises were, they had these meanings of some specific words, A, B, C, and then they started to make some phrases and sentences. And then he told them that he was murdered, and his body was in the garden or in the backyard of the house. Then, with this kind of information, you would also, of course, investigate, right? That's what they did. They went there in the backyard and they found rests of hair and some sort of course, parts of body that of this man that was actually murdered. They could prove that the information was real, right? And then they started to do these sort of meetings with more often. But at the same time, in France, they were having some sort of phenomenon that also, and of course not just in France, but all over Europe and all over the places and on the world. But then in France, they were having some kind of phenomenon of tables turning. The tables, if you were in this kind of meeting, you would be maybe freaked out with that, because the tables they used to rise up and turn around itself. And imagine that by that time, with no explanation, this would be such a mystery, right? And then they just like they did in Hydesville, they started doing this communications, right, with the spirits in this table turning meetings. Very good. By this, a man in France, a very respectful man called by that time Hippolyte, Léon, Denizard, Rivail. We know him by Allan Kardec. This man was born in 1804 in Léon, France. He was enrolled with 11 years old in the renewed school of John Heinrich Pestalozzi in Switzerland. He received a very nice education. In 1822, he had already written, with 18 years old, educational books about math, geometry, French grammar, chemistry, physics, astronomy, physiology, and others that we are not going to talk here right now. But in 1828, he was doing some kind of research in magnetism. He gathered with a lot of people by that time who were studying about magnetism. He gathered with these people. He was one of some sort of pioneer in this area. In 1832, he married a teacher, Amélie Gabrielle de la Combe-Boudet, that was a bit older than him and supported him all his work and in all his life. 1854, he heard about the turning tables and the speaking tables, but of course he didn't believe in it. Imagining a person who studied a lot, his whole life he's gonna believe in some speaking and turning tables. But then he went to one of these meetings invited by one of his really respected friends also, that he was he had a lot of wisdom because he actually studied a lot. He invited Allan Kardec to gather him in one of these table turn meetings, and with that he realized that in this meeting was some sort of logical and informations that was actually true. In 1856, he received the first manifestation of the Spirit of Truth, under whose orientation the Spiritist codification was developed. This Spirit of Truth, and of course a lot of spirits came from the highest levels of spirituality. They came with this mission to develop Spiritism. So the information they were gathering in the meetings they used to go, they put this in some sort of books that I'm going to tell you in a few seconds. In 1857, he published the first edition of the Spirit's book. What was this book? This book was about all these questions they used to make to the spirits in this kind of meetings. And in these meetings, there were mediums that used to write the answers. For example, what is God? Or what are dreams about? Or what is reincarnation? Is there life after life? This sort of questions that they put in the Spirit's book. Really nice. In 1858, he started publishing the Spiritist magazine. And in 11 years, he wrote 4,500 pages with his own hands. When I mean his own hands, that's because by that time we didn't have technological sources to help us to publish this kind of stuff. So let's imagine his work, the strength and that he had to have to do this kind of work. In 1861, he published the Medium's book. 1854, the Gospel According to Spiritism. 65, Heaven and Hell. In 68, the Genesis. That was just about the creation of word and beings and everything, of course, explained by the spirits. I'm not going to explain every single book of this, but we must know that these 5 books actually were the basis of Spiritism, and then we're going to know in the next classes, right? Very good. We must remember right now this sentence that Jesus told us, and let's read together. If you love me, keep my commandments, and I'll pray to the Father, and he shall give you another counselor that may be with you forever, the Spirit of truth, whose the world cannot receive, for it doesn't see him, neither knows him. By this, we know that Jesus, by that time, he actually told us that a new counselor would come. And this counselor we are talking about is the third revelation. Let's understand this a bit better. We talked in the last classes that Moses was the first revelation, right? And Jesus was the second one. And then he brought with him the two great commandments that we've tried to follow, right? Love God above all things and love your neighbor as you love yourself. Very good. And here we have Spiritism, the third revelation. And why Spiritism is this third revelation? Spiritism is the new science that has come to reveal to mankind, by means of irrefutable proofs, the evidence and nature of the spiritual world and its relationship with the physical world. Very nice. People, we must understand that in the time that Jesus came, people were not actually ready to receive all the knowledge that we had received today. And why is that? If you want to explain a kid about physics or the creation of the world, right? You may use some stories or parables or some, I don't know, you're going to find some way to explain her this. But you can't actually explain with this the whole aspects of the thing. And why is that? The kid is not ready. If you wait maybe 1 year, 2, 3 years, she's gonna be ready with the knowledge that she needs to understand what you're actually saying. And by that time, Jesus, with the people who used to live by that time, it was the same thing with the kid. He really wanted to explain what is life after life, reincarnation, and all other aspects we're going to talk a bit here in these classes. But the people were not ready for that. Mankind was not ready. Very good. By this, Christ alluded to this situation on several occasions. And it is the reason why much of what he said remain unintelligible or has been wrongly interpreted. That's because mankind was not intellectually prepared or morally prepared to receive this sort of knowledge. Spiritism offers the key by which all can easily be explained. We must understand, people, that by the time that Spiritism came, not just one place was happening this phenomenon. All over the world was happening it, right? And the messages and all the information that the spirits brought to us was actually brought in very different points of the world. How some sort of philosophy or doctrine can be made in a lot of different places, right? And be logical in all these different places and not being actually something that is truth, right? Very good. So by that we can understand that Spiritism is the key to understand what Jesus was trying to give us. By that we understand that Spiritism doesn't have only one aspect. It is a religion. Of course it is a religion once it connects us with God. It's also a philosophy. If we're gonna think a bit deeper, philosophy in the Latin means that you are friend of wisdom, friend of knowledge-man, right? So Spiritism always is gonna instigate you to promote you to know even more and more as long as you want, of course. And it's also science. And why is that? Science because we don't receive the informations without explanations. We always want to investigate it. We always want to know the cause, the effect, just like we do in physics or chemistry, in other science we have on Earth. Very good. And by that, we're going to read this to understand the main goal of Spiritism right now as a third revelation. Jesus promises another counselor, the Spirit of Truth, which the world did not yet know, because it was not sufficiently mature to be able to understand. We talked about that. Finally then, it has come to bring supreme consolation to the disinherited of the earth and to all who suffer by showing them the just cause of their suffering and the useful purpose of pain. Spiritism has come to bring us the explanations of everything. Why are there some people that are poor and they suffer? Why are there some people that are really rich and they were born in a country with more resources? Why is that? Is not God the symbol of justice? Yes, He is. Yes, it is. But how can you understand that? Spiritism with the law of cause and effect. Spiritism with the law of reincarnation will explain you. And all of these questions I made to you, you are going to understand in the next classes that we're going to discuss a bit more about this. Very good, people. And then to finally end this discussion we are having here, we'd like to have more time, but we cannot discuss another issues that we would like to. But let's read this together and to understand that. On earth, the work will outlive the worker. The believers won't congregate around Allan Kardec, but rather they will congregate around Spiritism, just as he had restricted it, and with his advice and his influence, we will move forward with firm steps to the blissful phase promised to a regenerated humanity. This text was adapted from Spiritist Society of Baltimore. Allan Kardec was a great man, that he had this great work, and he also said if in some point of life, in some point of history, if Spiritism contradicts science or reason, we have to stick with reason. And with that he said, we totally can understand how how much wisdom he had with this. It's not the phenomena itself. It's not mysteries. Everything has an explanation, and we invite you to know other explanations in the next classes that we're going to discuss a bit more about Spiritist doctrine. Thank you very much for your patience and for being here with us. You're all invited to be with us in the next times. Thank you very much.